I accidentally pressed the button and stopped the recording. Fuck. Fuck. Oh. I'm gonna have to... Fuck. I'm gonna send this to a friend and ask him to, do something real quick for me for that. Oh, I hate myself. Oh. Why am I so stupid? I'll send it to them and hopefully they'll just stick it together. I'm gonna... Give me 1 second. I need to... No, that's wrong. Why does it keep sending me... I'm sorry, I'm annoyed at myself for actually cutting the video. That annoys me. Anyway.
That's what it is. It's drugs they regularly take.
Oh.
They take it so frequently that the jackals poisoning the infusions led them to be sterile on a mass level. They just
Dear
pump
God.
it right into their methane tanks, which they need to breathe. Given
Yeah.
that they like human culture, which presumably includes music, I hope one day we get lore of a grunt speeding down High Charity on a ghost, absolutely blitzed out of his mind on infusions and blasting Kickstart My Heart the whole way.
That would've
They
been
can also
hilarious.
get high off benzene. It's
What?
worth noting that in real life, benzene gives you cancer. Who the hell
Oh.
made grunts? All the other Halo species
Dear God, that sounds awful. Grunts really don't get anything, do they?
pretty easy to understand and see how they work. Elites are warrior lizards, brutes are
Yeah.
angry monkeys, jackals are pirate birds. Grunts are what happens when you hit I'm feeling lucky on evolution. During their stay in the Covenant, they
Yeah.
held a pretty small variety of opinions on the other races.
Really?
Prophets were revered, as they were by pretty much everyone except the elites.
All right.
Everyone else was hated out of fear. It was even believed that one day a grunt savior would lead them to a paradise world. Paradise here meaning a methane planet that isn't freezing cold at all times. Most of what they did on the regular was orders given to them by higher-ups, which was everyone. Usually
Yeah.
those orders amounted to lift that box, or press that button when X happens, because no one thinks highly of grunt capabilities.
Yeah.
Their language is mostly squeaking and grunting, and their names are either the most basic syllables they could think of, or utter nonsense. They do, in some slight bit of credit for a species that has dozens of kids and hopes one of them lives to adulthood, feel attachment towards their offspring and families.
Aw.
Unfortunately, during their time in the Covenant, the grunts would be pressed into mandatory military service almost immediately. And because they reproduce so quickly, there were laws in place during peacetime to keep you from having kids. So if you weren't at war, no kids for you. And if you were at war, your kids are born to get shelled by artillery.
Oh,
Being a
God.
grunt truly is suffering. In the
It
military,
really is just suffering for them. Dear God, they get no good deals at the end of this. I mean, their good deal is that they can go back home and just live the way they want now, I guess.
after the Covenant came to recognize that grunts are in fact sapient and can be trusted with firearms, there was of course a variety of different roles they had. Meat shield was the common theme throughout all of them, but
Oh,
there were
yeah.
different kinds of meat shield. Grunt minor is the average grunt, literally and
Oh.
figuratively. They're the orange tannish colored grunts that are the lowest ranked and as such are given the worst weapons and armor. They die quick, and all they have are plasma pistols and needlers. Powerful weapons
Sounds
in the
about
right
right.
circumstances and perfectly capable of taking down a marine, but certainly still the lowest end of the Covenant hierarchy.
Oh,
Grunt
yeah.
majors are much redder in their armor's color, and while occasionally armed with better weapons, they still aren't anything worth worrying about. They can command other grunts and are slightly braver than most of their brethren, but like the
Slightly.
Skaven. A slightly braver Skaven is still a coward, just not quite as cowardly as the rats around him.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what a grunt major is. Grunt ultras are when the grunt in question is
Ultras.
more likely to stand and fight than not, and they even have actual real armor now. They command other grunts with actual bravery behind them, even if it'll falter when something like a Spartan shows up. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
criticize them much for that, though, because
Yeah.
anyone would falter when a Spartan comes running at them. Their armor even lets them tank something like a DMR round to the face before they go down, which is pretty impressive even by non-grunt standards.
Yeah.
Some more specialized roles exist, as you would expect, too. Grunt heavies are grunt heavy weapons guy. When you
Oh,
have
yeah.
a fuel rod cannon, it's easy to be brave. Storm grunts are grunt stormtroopers, deployed alongside troops like elites during spec op missions.
Careful, Chief, that grunt is an
Rangers
ultra.
float around in space, and Imperial grunts are veterans of the human Covenant War that have found themselves in a fairly prominent military position in some group or other. Could be the Banished, could be some Covenant remnants on Helios, or just random bands of assholes in space. There's also the Grunt Deacon. It's the single lowest rank in the Covenant political hierarchy and the only one attainable by Grunts. It has basically no real power. A Grunt trying to get his way with anyone above him will be ignored at best and probably killed at worst, and it overall is a position of zero importance. Nevertheless, a Deacon will bolster the fighting spirit of any nearby Grunts, and indeed they'll be stationed around the Covenant for this purpose. It makes them feel proud. A lowly Grunt was able to make it to a political position, even if it's one that doesn't actually matter. They're knowledgeable in the Covenant faith and do technically have a duty to supervise any other Covenant members on matters of faith, but no one who isn't a Grunt actually takes them seriously. Even when they make it to the big leagues, no one cares for the humble Ungoi. Most of the time, they're subservient to whatever commanding species they follow. If they follow a Sangheili commander, they'll be a bit more reserved and almost tactical. Even if their tactics usually end at try not to get shot at, there'll be some amount of training and discipline among these ones. Elites did come to respect them after all, so they'll be utilized properly to at least some degree. By contrast, brutes are stupid apes, and so they command their Grunt underlings like stupid apes. This is when the Grunts are truly utilized as meat shields, and while the brutes certainly think less of the Grunts, it's not even necessarily out of prejudice that they utilize Grunts this way. Brutes just want to get in and start fighting, and so they tell their Grunt minions to do the same alongside them. This is one of those
things where brutes really aren't better than the elites, and I'm honestly surprised the prophets replaced their guard with, well, brutes. I guess because they're more loyal. That's the only reason I can think.
Instances in fiction where someone mistreats their underlings not purely out of intent, but because they're so stupid that's just what they think they should do. They're pretty much all cowardly though, of course. When you shoot whoever's commanding them in the head, all the Grunts around will scatter and flee in random directions. Sometimes they'll rally and put up a fight, but usually they have been killed by the time that happens. Of course, as you probably know, sometimes they rally a bit too hard. They see the commander go down, make the logical assumption that they're next, and decide to dive into the great journey head first. In these cases, they pull out 2 plasma grenades and arm them, which fuses the grenade to their skin at the atomic level, and then charge at whoever's the leader. If you see this threat coming, you can shoot them and laugh. If you don't see them coming because you let them out of your sight or just rounded a corner and they decided suicide bombing was the opening act, you are likely to explode. In this way can the Master Chief, representing not only trillions of dollars of military research but also the last hope for mankind, be taken out by a dude who may very well be 10 years old. Fitting, really. The child soldier takes out the child soldier. They clearly don't want to be in combat. In spite of their bravery when forced to be brave, they avoid fighting at all costs and only fight because someone above them is forcing them to.
Pretty much. Most of the times when you run into these guys and they're just all alone or sleeping, they either take random pot shots and run or just run. Because they don't like combat. They're a naturally skittish race.
Quite frankly, they didn't want to be a part of the damn war. And since they have a black market of human artifacts, they likely don't even feel that bad about humanity. Sure, they're fervent followers of the Great Journey, and the Prophet said humanity is evil, so they went along with it, but I can't imagine that hate was all that deep in their hearts. Otherwise they wouldn't gossip over the 26th century version of Big Brother or some other reality TV show. In short, biologically speaking, Grunts are bug crab monkey people that breathe farts. Culturally speaking, once upon a time they had spaceflight, then the foreigners killed everyone, then the Grunts reached their industrial revolution and ruined their planet. Militarily speaking, they are thrown at a bunker and told to either clog it with their bodies or pray to the Forerunners the elite in charge can destroy the machine guns before it kills the Grunts. You will be hard-pressed to find a species more worse off than these guys, short of perhaps the average person born in the Imperium of Man or anyone born in the Zeela universe.
What the hell is the Zeela universe? I don't know that series. We'll probably eventually get to that. But yeah. Don't worry about it. Well, we'll probably get to that eventually. Probably. Maybe. I don't know. Grunt Legendaries.
I'm proud of that segment change title. Screw you. Anyways, I figured to end off and go over some of the more prominent Grunts. This is entirely because I think the Grunts can have a surprising amount of characterization for mob enemies, and not at all because saying Grunt names out loud makes me giggle. Let's start with our brave hero, Yayap. Yayap was a Grunt during the events of Halo Combat Evolved, and this should tell you everything you need to know.
He's dead.
He was born on Balaho and spent most of his time as a sentry and high charity in the lower districts, meaning he probably spent most of his time dealing with jackal muggers. Come the events of Combat combat evolved, he was part of one of the boarding parties that raided the Pillar of Autumn. When he and his party of grunts found an elite that had been incapacitated by the Master Chief by way of bullet to the head, they rescued him and took him to a dropship to be taken back for medical help. Not out of respect for a superior officer, of course not. If they took him to the dropship, that would mean they would all get to leave with him. Unfortunately for him, this elite, whose name was Zuka, decided that Yayap would make a good replacement for his last one who had died. Yayap wasn't pleased with this, but there was literally nothing he could do, so he reluctantly started following the elite around like a little brother. Zuka, who had developed an understandable hate boner for the chief on account of being shot in the head, dedicated the remainder of the book Halo the Flood to either trying to get permission to chase Chief around or actually chasing Chief around. Yayap's part in this was to get beaten up by Zuka and left next to a ruined ghost so that UNSC Marines would capture him as a prisoner and he could activate a tracking device. This succeeded, but the attack on the Marine base was a failure because Yayap had been forced into a Tom and Jerry skit for the entire duration of Combat Evolved. Zuka briefly impersonated a dead elite commando for reasons that would surely get him closer to the Master Chief, and they returned to the Pillar of Autumn to get Yayap some more methane. When they got there, they were put in charge of a group of jackals, and because Zuka was committing identity theft, he laid low and let Yayap do all the hard work. The jackals hated the Grunt for commanding them, and then Yayap saved them from some flood, which made them think of him as an honorary jackal. With such an illustrious position gained, Yayap was then told to monitor for signs of the Master Chief. Yayap found the chief, told Zuka where he was located, and then decided he had enough. The humans were beating their ass, the flood were here, which was a nightmare all on its own, and his liege was a dickhead. He took a day's worth of food, some spare methane, and then hijacked a ghost and just drove off from the Pillar of Autumn. Supposedly, he found some peace in his solitude, and it's at least a little impressive he avoided any Sentinels, other Covenant, and the Flood. His last sights were the Pillar of Autumn exploding, and then he died when the Halo Ring exploded. For Zuka's part, he has two different possible deaths. In the novelization of Combat Evolved, the Master Chief knocked him out of his turret with grenades, and Cortana sent the elevator he arrived in tumbling down the shaft, which broke his spine when it crashed. In the game, he and some grunts...
Born to eat books, forced to eat... Born... What? Fable, if you want, you can join me here. But yeah... Forced to eat books, what?
Pop out of an elevator, and then you blow them away like Breaking Benjamin without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
I like Yayap on all levels. On a meta level, he exists because when Halo the Flood was being written, Bungie didn't want any newly created characters to survive past the book so that they couldn't mess with the lore. So the author created this Looney Tunes duo of a Grunt and an elite that are constantly trying to kill the Master Chief and failing because he's the Master fucking Chief out of a single black armored elite that's just a random enemy. That's just a really fun story. In the book, it's easy to relate to him because his life is endless suffering and slapstick shenanigans forced upon him. It's compelling to read about, makes you feel for the guy. And finally, his name is funny, and his relatives and friends' names are funny too. He had a cousin that served during the Battle of Harvest. His name was Bapap. He had a friend in that initial boarding party too. His name was Gaga. Zuka was kind enough to let Yayap say goodbye to Gaga before becoming his assistant. These names make me feel like a toddler. Our next grunt on the list is Dadab. You know how Maze Hughes in Fullmetal Alchemist figures out the plot of the show before we even get to episode 10 and then dies for it? That's kind of what Dadab does. Dadab was a friend of an engineer, already a rarity among any Covenant species, and was a deacon aboard the Covenant ship the Minor Transgression, which was a Jackal privateer ship used to search for foreigner artifacts. Instead, it became the first Covenant vessel to meet humanity when the Jackals found a human cargo hauler and tried to attack it. Imagine being a truck driver in the Midwest and then one day you get mugged by aliens. Anyways, poor Dadab was the first Covenant member to see a human, who responded to his presence by trying to beat the poor Grunt to death. His engineer buddy, named Lighter Than Some, saved him by beating the human to death with a rock. Not long after, or at least I don't think it was long after, because admittedly I read Contact Harvest like a decade ago, Dadab reads the luminary used to find foreigner artifacts and finds Harvest lighting up like a Christmas tree. Millions of foreigner artifacts all over the place. The Holy Grail had been found. Of course, as you may know, those weren't artifacts. They were humans, which register as reclaimers on luminaries. Since the glyph for reclaimer was mistranslated as reclamation, poor Dadab got a first-hand view before anyone else on the Covenant's religion being false. At one point as Contact Harvest story goes on, he's standing by a wounded grunt by the name of Bapap. Yep, Yayap's cousin is here now. Dadab considered him one of the most prominent members of the flock. Tartarus the Brute came along, and when Dadab pleaded with the chieftain to save his friend, he shot Bapap with a spiker and killed him. This set
Wow.
Dadab on the path to radicalization. Throughout the battle, Dadab's faith is also tested, as Lighter Than Some commits a bit of heresy by trying to make peace with humans on Harbus. Dadab keeps trying to tell him that's not right, but the engineer is stubborn about it, since they're friendly little guys. Before that conflict could go anywhere, though, Lighter Than Some was killed by a group of drones who were jealous of the engineer's ability to be an engineer. Dadab responded by going absolutely berserk, killing the entire bunch of the insects before setting his sights on Tartarus the Brute. He knew he was going to die doing this, but he didn't care. He killed the bugs who slaughtered his floating octopus buddy, and he'd be damned if he didn't try and avenge Bap too. During a battle against some Harvest soldiers, Dadab charged his plasma pistol to the max and fired a shot at Tartarus. Tartarus smashed the Grunt into paste for the attack on his person, but he was forced to retreat because the attack knocked down his shields. Dadab knew he was going to die, but he hoped that if the humans could kill Tartarus afterwards, he'd have done all he could. It was unsuccessful, but there's a fun bit of lore here. Sergeant Johnston was present during this fight, and wondered why the Grunt fired at his chieftain's back. He thought the shot was meant for him at first, but thinking back, that wasn't so. Flash forward 30 years to Halo 2, and none other than Sergeant Johnson is present for Tartarus' death at the Arbiter's hands. Since Johnson made an alliance with the Arbiter at the end of the game, you can argue that Dadab's final wish was granted in a roundabout way. Either way, foreigners bless you, Dadab the Deacon. You were too pure for this world, and may you and your engineer buddy find peace in the afterlife. Our next grunt is Quasas, who I'm going to call K, because if I say his full name too many times, I fear you two will hit me with a demonetization hammer. K is featured in the book Ghosts of Onyx, and while he's part of a human character's shining moment of awesome, his fate is pretty sad. K and his tribe of grunts were trained as many others were in the art of listening for any human communications he could find. They were, however, forbidden from learning how to read human language, which would become problematic for him later on. He was in charge of maintaining a storage subdeck on a Covenant cruiser, and after the fall of Reach, K was wandering around one day doing grunt things when he decided he wanted to take a hit of benzene. Take the edge off things, you know? He just survived the fall of Reach, cut the guy some slack. He's earned his narcotics. Upon snooping around, though, K found some engineers fretting over some human gizmos, one of which looked particularly special. This sparked K's curiosity, and he went over to investigate, poking around till something interesting happened. Eventually, he succeeded. From this device, a recorded message from UNSC Vice Admiral Danforth Whitcomb began playing, hallowed be his mustache, informing K that he sincerely hoped the Nova bomb K was poking around with would send a whole lot of Covenant straight to hell. It took K a couple of listens of the message to get the gist of it, since he wasn't that proficient with human language, but eventually he figured it out and started panicking. Unfortunately, at this time, the control panel of the bomb shorted out and it deactivated. You may be wondering, how is the bomb deactivating totally a bad thing? That's because when it shorted out, it gained the attention of every engineer in the cargo bay, who by their nature of being literally biologically designed to tinker with and fix things, swarmed the disassembled bomb to make sure it worked right again. They didn't know what it was, they just knew thing broke, and they wanted to make thing not broke. K desperately tried to stop them from activating it, but he couldn't get through the swarm of engineers before they succeeded. The entire affair went a little something like this. It's a bomb! Now, the incident is kind of funny, and also a nice bit of humanity, hell yeah, because the Nova bomb took down hundreds of Covenant ships, a massive space station, a moon, and a good chunk of a planet when it blew up. I, however, do not feel joy when reading about the explosion. Not at first, anyways, because we get K's point of view when it blows up, and for extra poignancy, here it is word for word. Quasas pushed his way through the throng of Hiragak. He had to get to the thing and pull those wires. There was a flash of beautiful light and more glorious heat than he'd ever, and then it cuts mid-sentence because the force of a supernova just washed over him. All my man ever wanted was to be warm. He missed Balajo, but he had a special hatred of the cold after he lost almost all of his friends and family to the Blue Death. His earliest memories were watching his loved ones freeze to death around him. Even if he didn't have the words to describe it, this poor grunt wanted nothing more in life than to cozy up beside a fire with a blankie and some hot chocolate, and maybe just a little bit of grunty heroin. Pour one out for K, viewer. May he forever be fuzzy and warm in whatever afterlife the grunts believe in. And those are the grunts. In universe, they're unloved, unappreciated, and now they're basically completely ignored by anyone, save the occasional grunt that manages to lead some banished troops or something.
Right, we didn't have fancy tanks. We had to stick. Well, and we had to share the rock. Pretty much, yeah, that's the line from Sergeant Johnson. But yeah, grunts are literally just funny little guys.
But I love you, grunts. I love these silly methane-breathing goobers. It wouldn't be Halo without one of them timidly wondering if the Master Chief is still around before you come screaming out of the bushes with a gravity hammer at one. Thank you as always to my wonderful channel members. You are the grunts to my covenant, the ones doing all the behind-the-scenes work to keep things going. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or become a member. Either way, thank you for watching, and take care out there.
Yeah. So yeah, the grunts are funny little... Wait, he's got a thing at the end. He always does. He's got a lot of patrons. Dear God, man. I've only got like... Checks again. 15.
Oh, there's also a grunt
Making game. I found this enemy called Angry Gordon Ram. What?
in Halo 5 whose name was Kit Pitlimp. He tried to get either a Prometheum Knight or the Warden Eternal to worship him as a god. He died for the trouble. See, if Halo 5 was just a game about grunts doing goofy shit like that, we all wouldn't have hated it. Also,
Yeah.
that name is just perfect. Kit Pitlimp. I hope whoever came up with that got a raise or at least a free round of drinks.
I hope so too, but, you know, things don't usually work out that well for people. But on that note, everyone, what do you think about the funny little guys, the grunts? I think it was interesting to learn about their culture quite a bit and what they really do. 343. Ah. Yeah. 343 did not, do well with what they were doing. Anyway. Thank you all so much. If you guys want me to react to more, you know what to do, right? You have to like, you have to comment, and you have to subscribe so that I can keep making these videos for you. Anywho, thank you all so much for stopping by. If you guys want more, well, I already told you what to do, didn't I? That's on me for screwing up, but yeah, I like learning about the grunts. If you want to, yeah, subscribe. It definitely helps. Anyway, thank you all so much. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.